righty, everyone. Welcome to the Go Long podcast. As promised, this is the great JP Finlay, NBC Sports Washington. How you doing, man?
I am good. It's a hell of an intro. I don't know that I'll live up to it, but I'll
Well, it
give it.
wasn't enough. It wasn't. I mean, you co-host the great show with Brian Mitchell, right? Since 2021.
Yeah, we've been doing it a while, man. We've been doing it a while. Time flies with that stuff. Like we are it's our fourth football season, and we're almost halfway home on this 24 season, which is just crazy.
Well, you've lived the ups and the downs, and probably a few more downs than ups through the Dan Snyder regime. I wish we could carve out a good 2-3 hours to kind of sift through the rubble of things that you saw up close. But I think everybody's sick and tired of all that. These are good times for the Commanders. I don't know if anybody saw this coming. I know when they were signing all these veterans back in March, Bobby Wagner and Austin Eckler and Zach Ertz, I'm thinking, are they just kind of signing guys to sign guys? They have all this cap space. Like, where's the big move? But Dan Quinn had a plan. Adam Peters had a plan. And lo and behold, they draft Jayden Daniels. Here they are at 5-2 in command of the NFC East. I mean, if obviously the answer is quarterback, but if and we'll get to Jayden Daniels. Why else are we here? Why are we talking about the Washington Commanders as a legitimate contender here as November's right around the corner?
Yeah, I mean, Jaden's a huge part of it, right? Jaden's probably half, maybe more of it, frankly. And if you have a quarterback in this league, it changes your fortunes. But I mean, seriously, dude, like every move Adam Peters made, maybe not every, but most of them have been just home runs or like at least ground rule doubles. Think about the offensive line, which was a really tough unit last year. You signed Tyler Biotish. He immediately is playing at like a Pro Bowl level. I mean, he is nasty, durable, sets the tone for this defense, and it changed everything almost overnight. The Skins haven't had dependable center play since Chase Rouillet broke his leg, I think in the 21 season back in Denver. And it's just been a constant turnover. And it's really, really hard. I'm not saying that center is the most important position on the O line. Like, I think everybody would agree that that's left tackle. But if you don't have good center play and if you have turnover there, I'd say it's harder to have a good O line than like it might not be the most important position, but it's impossible to be good across without a good center. And I think Biotish made a huge difference. Nick Allegretti, the left guard they signed from Kansas City, that was them identifying somebody that they knew could have a bigger role in Washington than had at their last place. He's been really good. They drafted kid Brandon Coleman in the third round. He's been good. He's now dealing with a concussion. We'll see what happens there. Cosme, I think, was already good. They figured out an extension with him. On the right side, Andrew Wiley, I think a big part is as a result of playing with a much better center, but also just a better group. Wiley has been somewhere between serviceable to good all
Yeah.
season. So you rebuild your offensive line. You couple that with the removal of Eric Bieniemy, who was a problematic play caller, and the things inside that building and inside that offense last year just were so sideways, and there was no run game. And you have this young quarterback in Howell that has some promise, but clearly has a problem getting rid of the ball and turning it over. And then you only like pour gasoline on the fire rather than try to manage that.
Hmm.
I think Kingsbury has been brilliant in his play calling. For all the talk of Jayden, they run the hell out of the football. And I always joke about this, like the complication of football has become not even a cottage industry, like a legit industry. Like there are a zillion websites that can tell you how complicated football is, and without my advanced data, you'll just never understand it. But there is a simple philosophy of like protecting the quarterback and running the football. It works. and and on a lot of levels, you're doing that. Offensively, it's been way better. Defensively, it's been up and down. I think that was kind of expected, but some of the free agents they brought in are starting to hit. I think Luvu's been really good. Dorrance Armstrong's now missed a game, but he's been. They had it was a new scheme, million new players, million new coaches. Defensively, they really started slow, but they've been coming on, and you know we'll see how that looks as they play some better teams. But they've been beaten down the bad teams.
Well said. I mean, we do make this way more complicated than it needs to be. And I think there are some good analytic experts out there, sites out there, and then there's a lot of grifting because I'm with you 100%. Like you
And,
watch
and
the
I'm not
Commanders,
dismissing all that stuff. There's a lot of that stuff that's
I'll
really
dismiss
important.
some of it. Yeah, that's me talk, but it's so true. Like you watch the Commanders play, Brian Robinson is playing downhill. I mean, the way Anthony Lynn described it to me, it's like his back is parallel with the turf. Like, and he is looking to destroy. I mean, this is somebody that has been shot twice, survived, and is just out there, taking names and kicking ass. And then you combine that with Jayden Daniels, who can run, obviously, is setting records as we speak here, and he's really accurate, and you've got a special thing going. But I mean, Jayden Daniels is got to be surpassing even the wildest of expectations out there. When did you, JP, realize this is somebody that just has it and could win and excel immediately? Was there a point, OTAs, minicamp, training camp? When did you know that this guy was really special?
So I mean, I was like a Jayden believer coming out of college. I think if you watched him at LSU, have you ever heard that there's a great a kid Talib quote, the old cornerback, and it's something to the effect of like people that love analytics don't want to listen to the music; they only want to read the sheet music. Like if you allowed yourself to be conned into the thought that he couldn't throw to the middle of the field or something because he had Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors running down the sidelines, like sometimes I was a believer in Jayden. Um, Throughout camp, he was good. He looked really good in the Miami joint practices. Opening game, it's his first NFL game. Todd Bowles is blitzing from every angle. He was fine in that game, but he really, really started to show leadership and poise. And then it was the second half against the Giants game. If you go back and watch that tape or even just look at the box score, he was so good in the second half. And it was when he finally kind of slowed down and was like, all right, I don't have to take off and run. I can win from the pocket. And that, to me, I think the second half of the Giants game into that Monday nighter against the Bengals, against Joe Burrow. He was so unbelievable. And then everybody's like, all right, well, they'll give one back. This is the same old Commanders, like the Cardinals on the road. And he just carved them up. And I, we joke about it on our radio show. We say, the hashtag is no fade in Jayden. Like he's just
Mhm.
such a competitor. And every time you ask him, like, oh, could this be a letdown? He's like, man, I don't get very high coming off wins. So you can't go down if you never go up. And I think he's just so cool and poised and chill and just an absolute dog on the field.
That Giants game, I'm watching that second half like you from afar here, and I just wonder what is going through Brian Dable's mind. You know, you have an opportunity at Jayden Daniels if Tommy DeVito doesn't win 3 games last year, right? It was fun, right? Tommy Cutlets and all that stuff, him scooting around. But yeah, he loved him. We saw it on Hard Knocks, and instead they've got to deal with him twice a year for
Right.
we'll see how long. But as a leader, what's he really like behind the scenes? Because, I mean, he obviously can throw the ball 60, 70 yards with a flick of the wrist, and he's faster than anybody on the field athletically. He's got all the gifts, but I don't know, just to win over a locker room like he has. I was there for a few days, and you could tell that guys are rallying around him. There's something bigger at play there.
I think it's a combination. I think it all starts with, you know, the locker room always knows what is real and what is made for television, for lack of a better word. And the NFL and teams across the league do a good job of making some stuff for perception and TV. And, you know, we've seen that in Washington significantly over the years, where for a lot of players here, it's been about hype, both from the organization side and from the player side. Jayden just doesn't care. He's just he couldn't be less bothered by social media or commercials. Like if you look at his Twitter account, at least the last time I looked at it, the last tweet he sent or X he sent was like clearly somebody that his publicist, like somebody just logged in to retweet a Heisman House ad. Like it's just, and I follow him on Instagram. It's maybe the occasional like religious message, or he's really big on like his former LSU teammates to like repost their stuff, but there's no look at me in him despite the whole, and I think that makes the world look at him that much more. And I think in the locker room, what those guys know is that he puts the work in. And when you do, everybody recognizes. And then when you do it consistently and you're really good, they're like, oh man, I better do the same thing. And he doesn't have to tell anybody, like he's just doing it. And I think for a rookie to try to come in and like rah-rah the veterans, I think that's not always well received. And I think Dan Quinn deserves a lot of credit that he didn't try to like falsify a leadership role for Jayden right away. You know, when everybody first got there for mandatory camp in late May or early June, whenever that was, there was no like, yeah, Jayden's our captain. You know what I mean? Like there was none of
Yeah.
that. And it just allowed everything to kind of happen organically, and it has.
That's a really good point. I like that. And it does seem like Dan Quinn is the ultimate culture builder. I mean,
Yeah.
he just gets the modern player and knows that it's about them. Like, right, that they're gonna set the standard day in and day out of what it looks like. It's no dictating, yet he's still a vocal leader and says what needs to be said. I don't know, just everybody I've always talked to about Dan Quinn, they feel like they could talk about him for hours, but this coaching staff, um, man, it's impressive, isn't it? From him to Cliff Kingsbury, who, man, he's caught a lot of shit, but I don't know. Like one of his quarterbacks from Texas Tech, Nick Shimonek, I'll never forget. He was Mahomes' backup. Just said how Cliff Kingsbury just eats, sleeps, breathes this stuff. He's researching, football from the 40s and 50s, all just constantly looking for an edge. And maybe he just needed Jayden Daniels. Maybe this is the perfect fit for him to unlock everything. And then you throw Anthony Lynn in there, who's one of the best running back coaches of a generation and has been a head coach. What do you see out of this coaching staff? I mean, that's kind of another part of this that maybe hasn't really been discussed enough because there's and I think Ben Johnson's a stud and he'll be a head coach and we'll be talking about him a lot, but we're thinking he's going to be the coach there. It's not, it's Dan Quinn and everything's fine. Clearly.
Right. No, yeah, dude, I totally. And I mean, Ben Johnson called himself out of the race and either didn't think he was ready or didn't want this job, and everything has kind of worked out well. You know, the universe unfolds as it deems appropriate, I think. Cliff's been super impressive, and I think specifically to Jayden, kind of the room they've built to nurture quarterbacks. You have Jayden. They signed Mariota, a veteran that's a former number 2 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner that understands at least the pressure. You know what I mean? Not the success, but the pressure. He understands. He walked that path. Um, then you so they have Tavita Pritchard, who was Andrew Luck's backup at Stanford, who's been with the organization now, but they kept him on. Brian Johnson from Philly, who I think was pretty unfairly scapegoated as they fell apart last year. If you look at Brian Johnson's track record working with quarterbacks, it's pretty damn impressive. Going back to his Mississippi State days with Dak. And then they added this David Blau, and I don't know how
Yeah.
David Blau is kind of a journeyman backup. He
Yeah,
is,
I was talking to him last year about being a coach one day. I didn't think it happened this fast.
dude, ask around about him. His reputation as a quarterback mind. Maybe he didn't have the arm for it. Maybe, the results are the results. But as a quarterback mind, that dude, like if I had to guess fast track to more jobs, I think Blau is really on it. I bet he's a QB coach next year. I don't know how they make all that work because who knows what happens with Cliff and Brian Johnson. Even their tight ends coach, this guy David Rye, who
Yeah.
is a badass, goes way back with Cliff. He was a college quarterback at Iowa. Like they I think very systematically, and I credit DQ for this. One, it takes balls for a retread, a second time head coach to hire enough guys that he could be fired and replaced by. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it takes balls to do that because a lot of coaches just operate from a realm of self-preservation where it's like, all right, I'm going to build this out so I get at least 3 years. You know what I mean? And DQ didn't do that at all on either side of the ball, I don't think. Um, the staff is quite impressive. I think that was one of Rivera's biggest failures was the staff he put together, especially last year. Now, last year was such a mess with the sale and everything else, but you got to try to empower people, and I think Dan has.
Joe Witt. as DC too. Man, I remember back in the Packer days when he was the cornerbacks coach talking to him and you know, thinking at that point, this is going to be a head coach one day. Granted, he was really young, but what he got out of Charles Woodson late in his career, Sam Shields, undrafted out of Miami, stud, Tremont Williams. I mean, that room was loaded, and you could tell he was vested at a deep level. I mean, just another really good coach stuck in a really bad situation there in Dallas. After that, now it's like Washington's kind of reaping the rewards on their coaching staff too, from where these
Yeah.
guys have been.
Think about Witt in Dallas with Deron Bland. I mean, and the way Witt speaks and carries himself, when it's become so cliche to say the standard is the standard, but that dude lives it, and it's harder for defensive guys to break through and get head coaching gigs. But if that happened for Joe Witt in 3 years, I wouldn't be shocked at all.
So you've talked to him as well. I mean, he just makes you like want to run through a wall.
Yeah.
As passionate as he is about this stuff. So it's I mean here we are just kissing their ass at every turn here, but
No,
they're not going to win the rest of their games. I mean, right now
no.
Jayden Daniels is dealing with a rib injury. Like, what's the latest there? I don't know when people be listening to this. What do you think's gonna? I would imagine they'd be smart. If it's up in the air, why would you risk him even if it's against Caleb Williams and the Bears? But what's your read on his rib issue?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know when this is going out. We're recording this Wednesday night, um,
Thursday a.m.
Thursday morning. Sorry. So
Oh, yeah,
Dan,
but that's when I'll post it. Yep.
Dan Quinn on Wednesday said Jayden wasn't practicing. That's the least shocking thing ever. Like guys get Wednesday off when they get a bad cut on their finger. So like I never thought he would practice Wednesday. There's continuing to say hopeful week to week. From what I understand, it's kind of like a rib cartilage issue, and perhaps it comes down to a pain threshold thing. I don't think we know. I don't think we find out though till I don't think it's gonna be Friday. I think they take it up to like inactives almost or game on Sunday and just one give Jayden all the time they have. But at this point, what's the advantage in letting the Bears know?
Totally agree. And I get it that the take will be scalding that he can't hold up in the pro game because you look at him up close, and I was even surprised at how like tall and
Yeah.
thin he is. There really isn't another player built like him. I mean, I guess Lamar Jackson because he lost some weight, but to me it's a weapon. I mean, you don't want him putting on 10, 15 pounds. He's got the 4.3 speed out there running that read option. Hopefully they just kind of let him be Jayden Daniels, and this is just kind of you're going to get an injury from time to time with all of these quarterbacks. We say it all the time with Josh Allen, but just finally, JP, if there's something else that holds this team back this season, what do you think it would be?
I think when they play better teams, they got real questions in the secondary, and they've had some injuries. I was unsure about the pass rush going into the season, and they've had some injuries there. I think defensively is kind of what you worry about, assuming you know health. If you can assume relative health, especially at the quarterback position, I think the defensive secondary is their biggest area of concern.
Yeah. Well said. Well, we got to let you get back to your day job here. Thanks so much for fitting go along in. JP Finlay, NBC Sports Washington. I want to say, is it 106.7 the fan?
Yeah, maybe we'll have you say it more often. Get you on the air.
Hey, anytime, man. Anytime. Gotta get back down there. And hopefully next time I travel down to the Commander's country, I don't hit a deer on the way back on
Oh,
219.
did
So
you?
yeah, I was driving at night, just always like to be a road warrior when it's within 8 hours and
Wow.
just south of Ridgeway. Poor,
Where are
poor
you in
guy.
Buffalo?
Yeah, yep, just a little south of Buffalo.
How long is the drive from Buffalo to Ashburn?
With stops, you work in a few sheets, 7 hours. I'd say
Huh.
traffic. So it's not too bad, but it's like 2 lane, 219. The deer are in rut. 18 wheelers going a good 15 over the speed limit. Highest
Yeah, that's not
elevation this side of Mississippi, up and down. It's different. Not
that's
exactly
not driving.
10 and 2, baby. 10 and
Yeah.
2.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks so much, JP.
Thank you. Take care.